I've been intermittent fasting for over a decade. It works for me. I'm a big believer. And it's not just my fed fast window gives me a little bit more freedom, but I do it for rest and recovery. I do it for gut repair.
Brooke, welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here.
All right. How is it that women face greater challenges? You guys try to do everything right, and women are a huge part of my patient population. Why are you guys having such a hard time with this?
Well, I love a conversation like this because I deal with so many women that are frustrated, that seem to be making all the right choices. I am actually one of those 80% that you just spoke about. So I've got a handful of autoimmune disorders. I've had thyroid cancer, Hashimoto's, IBD, vitiligo, Meniere's. My list is long. And yet I work so hard to take great care of myself. And the statistics show us, 80% of us, then you've got heart disease, we've got osteoporosis, right? Autoimmune, all of these things, hormonal challenges. Why are we facing so many more challenges than men?
Well, how come?
What do we need to do differently?
Well, you're right. In fact, I was just being interviewed by a podcast hostess yesterday afternoon who is a fitness influencer, who is a mother. And as we progressed, she's got autoimmune issues. She's on thyroid replacement, and she's doing everything right. And she said, what the heck? Why me?
Mother Nature really stuck it to us.
Yeah, and again, I've written a lot about this. I think you guys you're designed to have a parasite in your body for 9 months at a time. And your immune system, unlike men, doesn't have to dramatically shift gears during the time of a pregnancy from accepting this incredibly foreign entity in and not attack it, and then return kind of, quote, to normal. And it's so interesting to me, 80% of my practice is autoimmune patients who have tried everything and doesn't work. So many women, right after pregnancy, may be the first time that an autoimmune disease appears, or a bowel issue appears, or fatigue appears. Many of my patients who are dealing with an autoimmune disease, let's just choose rheumatoid arthritis, when they get pregnant, they go into remission. And their rheumatoid arthritis goes away, their markers goes away, the swelling in their hands go away, or wherever. And then minute that baby comes out, their autoimmune disease flares, and it's just a storm.
So no one's really talking about this. It's so fascinating. And when you describe it that way, you're right. I was diagnosed with my first autoimmune disease after pregnancy. Yeah. So is it a hormonal shift? Is that what we're talking about here? Is it a neglect to try to manipulate and that process?
No, I think a lot of it, at least for my patients, is just the act of labor causes really profound changes in the wall of the gut. The gut wall becomes ischemic. And you also, during the act of labor, there's a lot of foreign particles from the baby that are actually released into the bloodstream of the woman. And so I think it's this kind of damage to the wall of the gut plus the sudden change in that baby coming out of there that starts a lot of this process.
So do you think in the world of preventative care or even manipulating the body, if we were to attempt and make our best effort to build a stronger immune system, do we then have a better chance at managing all of these health challenges?
Well, I don't think it's so much a stronger immune system. What I think is more important is educating the immune system.
For sure.
And we're beginning to realize that long ago, back when our ancestors, our great-great-grandparents had a normal microbiome. Basically, we're supposed to have a tropical rainforest of microbes in our gut with all this diversity of creatures, if you will, that are dependent on each other. And we know that the more diverse this tropical rainforest is, the more information is actually given to our immune system about who are bad guys, who are good guys, but perhaps more importantly, the information is given to the immune system that this set of microbes has got our back, that anything that comes down the pipe, anything that we're exposed to, our gut microbiome, our oral microbiome, will take care of the problem.
Naturally. So we have this natural ecosystem that's supposed to work for us.
Right. And you immune system, you're the
we mess it up.
you're the last guard. And we've got you. And you guys just kind of relax. We'll call you if we need you. And we'll tell you who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. Now, unfortunately, most of us have a desert wasteland instead of a tropical rainforest. So, number one, we don't have a really great defense system in our microbiome. And number two, we don't have any teachers in our microbiome to tell our immune system who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. So that's a 1-2 punch. So we've got as I talked about in the gut-brain paradox, we've got a poorly trained militia that doesn't know who to shoot at. And so we're more likely, I think particularly women, to just shoot at just about anything rather than...
Sounds like a disaster.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, autoimmune diseases in the dark ages when I was in medical school, they were so rare. They existed, but they were so rare that when we do workups of somebody who had a problem, when we exhausted all other possibilities, we'd say, let's do the funny tests. And they were called funny tests, which were these blood tests for autoimmune diseases. And they were called funny tests because we almost never needed them. It's like, well, maybe she's got one of these funny diseases like Crohn's or rheumatoid arthritis.
So that's so interesting. Why are we seeing it so commonly now?
Because that whole system has fallen apart, where we don't have a gut microbiome to protect us, and we don't have teachers in our gut microbiome to teach who the good guys are and bad guys are.
So is it because of what we're putting into our bodies? Is it the environment around us?
All of the above. Yeah, I write about the 7 deadly disruptors. But one of the things that really over the last, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I was in medical school in the middle 70s, believe it or not. 3 things happened in the 1970s that changed everything. And you can look back now and go, holy cow. These 3 things. Number 1, broad spectrum antibiotics were developed. And they were miraculous when they came out, because before that, we had to put something on a petri dish and see if it would grow. And then we'd have to try individual antibiotics to see if it would kill it. And that would take a long time, days. And most of these bacteria wouldn't even grow on a petri dish. So we didn't know how to treat serious infections. When broad spectrum antibiotics came out, it was great because now we had a shotgun or an AK-47 set on automatic, and we can just plow down all these bacteria. And it was miraculous. What we didn't know is that it also killed all the bacteria that lived in our gut, who we didn't even know were there. So that was number 1. Number 2, glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, was invented and by Monsanto, and it was actually patented as an antibiotic, not as a weed killer. And now glyphosate is not used on GMO crops. It's actually used on conventional crops to dry them, desiccate them, so you can harvest them easier. And so it's sprayed on all our wheat, all of our corn, all of our soybeans, you name it, it's sprayed on it. And it's not washed off, so it's fed to our animals, and we eat the stuff. And now we know that glyphosate is a really good way to kill off bacteria in our gut. So that's number 2. And number 3, NSAIDs were developed, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, like ibuprofen, like naproxen, Aleve, and Advil. These things were so dangerous in causing holes in the wall of our gut that originally it was only by prescription, and you could only use them for 2 weeks because the FDA said they're so dangerous. Now they're the largest selling.
People are popping them like Tic Tacs, and no one's talking about this. So I know that because of my autoimmune challenges in my gut. I know that that's bad for me, but nobody's really talking about this.
No, and I've seen a number of world-class athletes
popping them daily for anti-inflammatory reasons.
who had an injury and they were treated with this stuff. All of a sudden, develop an autoimmune disease, and they go, "Well, what the heck? How would that happen?" And then we look, and they've got wide open leaky gut, and their immune system is activated.
Gosh, we have to do a better job of being educated. I mean, there's so much information out there. It's really difficult for people to cipher through that and to understand what the positive changes are. And, I'm curious, smarter supplementation, how important is that? And how much of a difference does that really make in our overall well-being?
I used to tell patients for my change of life that supplements made expensive urine. And I firmly believe that.
I don't disagree.
They don't make expensive urine, as I've subsequently learned. In fact, I'll tell you a story from this week. I had a patient who had very low coenzyme Q10 levels. And before we started measuring coenzyme Q10, we knew that statin drugs like Lipitor, Crestor, block the production of coenzyme Q10 by the liver. And so, for instance, in Canada, if a Canadian physician prescribes a statin drug, by law, they also have to prescribe coenzyme Q10. That law doesn't exist in the United States. No. So, and most well-meaning physicians don't know that you literally have to give someone on a statin drug coenzyme Q10. Why is it so important? Because coenzyme Q10 is so called because it is the coenzyme to make ATP, the energy currency that we burn. And if you don't have coenzyme Q10, you don't make as much ATP as you need. And what surprised me when we first started measuring coenzyme Q10 is that most adults after the age of 50 pretty much don't make coenzyme Q10 anymore. So you have to supplement it.
And most adults, I imagine, don't understand because they're not a great detective of their own body why they don't have energy, which we know leads to a whole lot of negative things. It's so interesting. We need energy.
Otherwise, we're not around. Yeah. And the other thing that is interesting is that, for instance, at least half of us carry one or more mutations of what are laughingly called the mother effer genes, which are the MTHFR mutations. And everybody wants to blame everything bad that ever happened to them because of this mutation. Yep. But it's very fixable with the right form of methyl B12 and methylfolate. And a lot of us naively say, oh, there's a supplement that says methyl B12. I'm going to swallow it. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't have a receptor in our intestines that allows us to absorb methyl B12. But if we put it under our tongue, it can go directly into our bloodstream. So I'll tell you a hilarious story. I had a patient who had this mutation, and I put him on a methyl B12 sublingual under his tongue, and we measured his B12 level, and we measured his homocysteine level, and his B12 levels were low. And I said, you're not taking your methyl B12. He says, yes, I am. I take it every day. I said, no, you're not. Look, here's the evidence. You're not taking it. He said, I'm telling you, I'm taking it every day. And I said, and you're putting it under your tongue, right? And he said, well, no, it's so sweet. I sweeten my coffee with it.
Gosh. Yeah.
And I said, you can't do that. You can't swallow it. I said, put it under your tongue. I'll see you in 3 months. And sure enough, he put it under his tongue, and his B12s were perfect, and his homocysteine was fine.
But in his defense, how would one know? So what is sort of the baseline for somebody? Where do they begin? How is the general population going to have a better understanding of what to do and what not to do and what the enemies are? Well, where does somebody even begin?
And that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. There's one of the vitamin companies, a very good company called Now, has taken it upon themselves to buy various supplements on Amazon and then send them to a third-party lab. A third-party lab's you send, like Gundry MD, we send all of our products to a third-party lab and say, show us what's in this that I'm claiming that's there. I don't want to exaggerate, but 85% of the products that Now bought on Amazon and sent to the lab either didn't contain the ingredient they said it did or didn't have anywhere near what they claimed was in there. And I'll give you an example from this week. I have a woman who needs a huge amount of CoQ10 to get normal levels. And she needs about 600 milligrams of CoQ10. Most people need about 100. But we'd had to work her up. And so she was taking 2 300 milligram gel caps from Costco. And it was working great. That was her dose. And great. So I see her last week, and her CoQ10 is in the toilet. And I go, what the heck? Why'd you stop your CoQ10? And she said, I didn't. And I said, well, yeah, you did. Look, there it is. And she said, no, I didn't. I said, and you're still taking those 2 Kirkland CoQ10s. She said, well, no, it's 2 of them. And I found one on Amazon that's 600 milligrams. And it's got all this other great stuff in it. So I've been taking that. Makes sense, right? 600, just one. There was nothing in it. Yeah. You got to know your supplement company. At the very least, you gotta make sure it's GMP certified, general manufacturing practices, but you gotta make sure that it's third-party tested, that the company says
Those are
it's in
2
there.
great points for people to wrap their head around.
Yeah.
Just to simplify, the whole process. And, one of the questions that I get a lot in my community with women 40, 50, 60, I'm on the other side of menopause, but Mother Nature keeps changing everything as soon as I figure it out. So I have great compassion for most women. But one of the things that's coming up a lot for me is this mystery of protein and how much do we need? And is it a gram per pound or a gram per kilo? Osteoporosis, energy, bone density, BMI, why is fat showing up? Why do my joints hurt? Like, there's so much going on in the female body, and everybody's looking for a quick fix and for one solution. So I'd love to unpack a little bit about the mysteries of protein with you and what your thoughts are and how much can we really get from Mother Nature and how important is supplementation in that world. I'm adding it to my smoothies now, and I'm adding more protein into my daily routine for the first time because I'm really struggling to meet my protein goals. My body's changing, so I'm trying to change with it. I'm trying to show up differently as my body is different. And that's what I tell most women. You've got to be a detective. You've got to ask the questions. You've got to have some great advisors, but you've also really got to listen to your body and take those signs and the body language and get curious and stay curious and listen and learn and then change along the way. It's very complicated. Most of the words that you use mean nothing to the general population. It's confusing. There's a lot of information out there.
There's probably 3 of us in the medical community that are the anti-protein guys, is the wrong word, but we are over-proteinized in this country. Walter Longo, head of longevity at USC, Christopher Gardner, head of nutrition at Stanford, and me have been pleading that we eat far too much protein than we will ever need. And that's not based on conjecture, that's based on science. The U.S. Department of Agriculture sets the recommended daily allowance for all of these nutrients. And the way the RDA for protein is set, 50% of people can meet their protein needs with just about 40 grams of protein per day. That's it.
Regardless of
activity. The USDA says, well, we don't want to worry about 50%. We want to make sure that 95% of people, when we tell them what they need, will get enough protein. And so they double the recommended amount so that literally everybody, no
Maybe
matter.
You do half of that.
Yeah. Half of that would be just fine, but let's err on the side of caution. Isn't it true that older people need more protein? Yes, but not for the reason you think. I actively take away protein from my older individuals and seal their gut. And we find that their need for protein was because they had damage to the wall of their gut. We're supposed to have a surface area of a tennis court to absorb food. Most of us, as we get older, have a ping pong table as a surface area.
Right.
What was remarkable to me is as I took protein away from patients, but repaired the wall of their gut, their protein levels in their blood, their albumin actually went up as I took their protein away. We're all 3 of us are interested in how do we maximize not only our longevity, but our health span. And that's the side we've chosen to come down on. There's certainly other very valid arguments. If I'm a 20-year-old power lifter, I'm certainly going to need far more calories to accomplish what I want.
We're all so different, and having a greater understanding, I think, of our individual needs is really key. And I think it's such a big picture. It's smarter supplementation, it's restorative rest and sleep and rest and recovery, and really understanding that there's strength in that. I mean, I'm a big believer in this concept of strength as it pertains to training, building muscles, but also strength in how we show up, strength in how we surrender, strength in the need to understand how to regulate our nervous systems, how to slow down. I mean, I think in the concept of lifespan and longevity, it's about regulating that nervous system. It's knowing when to slow down, how to listen to our body, the need for rest, as well as the need to activate energy, which we do through, in my opinion, movement, mobility, not just fitness, but movement. You know, and we know that to be true from the studies of the blue zones and these people that are living to be 100 and plus years. How did they get that way? And you know, and I think it's mindset. It's lowering their stress levels, movement, nutrition, happiness, energy, all of those things. It's not just one magic pill or one magic solution. That's so different for each individual person.
Yeah, the best lessons from the blue zones is you really ought to be a goat and sheep herder.
Right.
Because they're all goat and sheep herders. And, you know, but we all can't be goat and sheep herders.
I'll tell you a funny story. I went to Costa Rica to host one of my VB body retreats, and I went to Nosara, one of the blue zones, and I thought, I'm going to find these Centurion people that are 100 plus years. I'm going to interview them. They're going to give me their secrets. They're going to tell me what they're eating and what they're drinking and what they're doing. And I was so excited about this adventure. And to my surprise, this was a culture that wasn't really stressed out. They were sleeping great. They were rising with the sun. They were walking to work. There wasn't a gym to be found because they didn't need one. It was all about movement and mindset and low stress. And that time there, and I go back there every year to host a transformational wellness retreat, but that mindset really changed me. And there's some really simple things that, by the way, are free and available to us and that Mother Nature has provided us with, like sunshine, quality sleep, community, love, happiness.
So we can all move to Costa Rica?
Let's go. But I think movement and mindset also are a really big part of this equation. How we meet ourselves, how we activate natural energy, our willingness to create dopamine and adrenaline, and even oxytocin, that feel-good drug that when you do something good for yourself, it makes you want to do more. The better you feel, the more you do. The more you do, the better you feel. It's a very simple solution for me. How we fuel our body, how we speak to our body, how we meet our body, how we move our body. Some really simple things. You know, I've been on this big walking mission lately, and it's not just walking for a workout, it's walking for movement and for energy. I take a couple of my calls a day now, doing a walk and talk. I'm more focused. I'm not distracted. I'm not locked down at my computer. I'm moving my body and just creating energy and doing something mindful that really feels good. I think there's a lot of little things that we overlook because we just want one magic pill or one magic quick fix, and we want one answer and this universal theory, which I really don't believe exists. We're so different. You know, even going back to this protein formula, everybody is different activities, different needs, different challenges. It's fascinating and it's mysterious. And we have a long way to go in regards to educating ourselves and really understanding how our bodies process differently.
Well, that's why I see patients 6 days a week and look at their blood work every 3 months, because you can watch these things unfold in real time, and they're my laboratory, if you will. I've been a researcher all my life. So my patients, most of what I learn from them. Like, okay, I invented the concept of exercise snacking, actually trying to get my patients to incorporate small bits of movement throughout the day. This.
I have a similar turn, and the app, we call it bite-sized burns. Yeah. And knowing that doing something is better than doing nothing. If you have 10 minutes today, you know, I really designed and choreographed this app for people that are busy, that want to do something, that understand doing something, beginning small, doing something today is better than just losing your sense of self and not being able to find your way back. So these bite-sized opportunities. If you have 5 minutes, I could show somebody how to retrain their core. You don't need more than 5 minutes a day, because that's all it takes if you do it properly and efficiently. So I'm a big believer in that, and taking those moments to activate energy. I love that. Snacks, bite sizes.
Brushing your teeth. Do deep knee bend squats while you're brushing your teeth. For sure. You know, it's like you got 2 minutes to do it while you're not doing anything else.
Sure. I have a question for you, because this comes up a lot. I would love to pick your brain about this concept, this mystery of collagen. Collagen's having a moment right now, and everybody's talking about it. Vanity, hair, skin, and nails, but beyond that, also for me, gut health and gut repair. And I do a whole lot of things in that world because of another autoimmune and IBD, and longer conversation. We could do a whole pod on that one, and intermittent fasting and gut repair. But what are your thoughts on collagen?
Well, if collagen was actually the miracle that all the collagen companies want us to think it is, then every one of us growing up in the 50s and 60s and even the 70s should all have looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I say that is because multiple times a day, we all ate collagen in the form of Jell-O. And Jell-O is merely collagen. And all of us had consommé, which was bone broth for lunch, and fancy restaurants that served it for dinner. So we were awash in collagen. And
we were.
I'll leave it at that. What I think is most important is we know the building blocks of collagen. And to me, it's far more important to make sure that you, number one, are consuming the building blocks that collagen is made from. But number two, you actually have to have vitamin C to knit collagen together. And it's one of the big missing pieces, I think. We are one of the few animals that don't manufacture our own vitamin C. So we have to have a supply of vitamin C.
You mean a supplement?
As a supplement. And you have to have timed release vitamin C. You can swallow vitamin C, but it's gone in about 3 hours.
Timed release.
Timed release vitamin C.
Another great tip, everybody.
Timed release.
About
1,000 milligrams twice a day. Barring that, you could get chewable vitamin Cs and take one about 500 milligrams 4 times a day. But it's one of the real keys to putting collagen to use.
I'm starting that today.
All right.
I'm a good patient.
Very good.
In baseline, you mentioned something about seeing your patients and doing blood work every 3 months. One of the best pieces of advice that I could give anybody is to really be a great patient. And I am, because I have to manage this very complicated system, and you wouldn't know that, but I am a detective of my own body, and I'm a really good patient. But having that baseline blood work, knowing where you've been and where you are, and having something to really measure that against, so important.
You don't want to manage these things. You want to get rid of these things. And the great thing is, like published my data, 94% of people who arrive with an autoimmune disease by blood markers, they're in remission within 9 months to a year on no medications. So this is not, I firmly believe this is not something you manage. This is something you get rid of.
That's hopeful.
And that's why I see patients 6 days a week.
You're a good doctor.
Not that. I get up to see a miracle, what I would have called a miracle 30 years ago. If I don't see a miracle happen in my office, then I wouldn't get up. But my goodness, getting up and saying, wow, what miracle am I going to see today? That's pretty motivating.
I love that. That's hopeful. So I know Mindy Peltz was a guest on your podcast. I love her. Fast Like a Girl, fantastic book that I think every woman and young woman should read. I've been intermittent fasting for over a decade. It works for me. I'm a big believer. And it's not just my fed fast window gives me a little bit more freedom, but I do it for rest and recovery. I do it for gut repair. We've been doing it for centuries. I'm a big believer. It is the greatest nutritional choice that I've ever made. What are your thoughts? And I like to extend my fast window as well. Thank you, Mindy, for the inspiration, but also understanding when and how. For me, it's really the why, but when my body needs certain things, and when my body functions at a higher capacity, and when my body needs to slow down and rest and recover. So it's not just somebody who's skipping breakfast and starving. That's not intermittent fasting, everybody. But it really works for me. I love it.
As far as I know, and nobody's contradicted me yet, and people love to, I was the first person to write about time-restricted eating back in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And it was in my first book, Dr. Gundry's Diet Evolution. We actually had an entire chapter on the manuscript, and my editor, Heather Jackson at Random House, said, "This is crazy. I am not going to let you say this. We're cutting the chapter."
Oh, no.
Seriously. And I said, no. I've been doing this since 2000.
Because no one was talking about it at all back then.
Nobody. And I said, here's why I'm doing it. Here's the data. And here's the studies. And she said, okay, I'll give you 2 pages in the book to make your case. That's it. The chapter is gone. You get 2 pages. And anyone who's looking, you can find those 2
I'm
pages.
gonna look that up.
And yeah, so I was speaking at the Mind Body Green Symposium a couple of years ago, and who should be in the audience but Heather Jackson. And she came up to me and she said, I always knew you're going to be a great author. And can you ever forgive me for taking your chapter away? She said, I should have realized that you were right about this, like you were right about other things. I should have let you have it. I said, nah, no hard feelings. But I was first to write about this. We did not crawl out of our cave and said, what's for breakfast? There wasn't a storage system. There wasn't a bowl of Cheerios up there.
True. So
and
true.
if you look at hunter-gatherers, modern ones, they don't eat until 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning when they find something.
When they find food. It's very simple.
And, very simple. It's very simple. And the point of that is, and I've written several books about why that's beneficial, is we know our brain needs 7-8 hours of rest. We need it shut down. Part of that is for repair work. Part of that is brain cleaning, this wash cycle. And if we know the brain needs that rest period, it just makes sense that perhaps our GI tract, which is incredibly metabolic active, needs that same period of rest. And work out of San Diego has shown that the average American now is eating 16 hours a day.
Wow.
Literally from the second they get up.
Which means they are digesting in their rest period and nothing good is happening.
Nothing good is happening.
In my rest period, I want to cleanse my body. I want cellular repair. I want to recharge my batteries.
Yeah. And so that just doesn't happen.
It's so simple to me. And going back in time with what you said, it's just fundamentally how the way of the world was back then. It's interesting, after reading, Mindy's book as well, even religiously when we go through fast, everybody thinks they're starving and so broken down, but really we're creating and activating a great opportunity for energy. We just have to change our mindset in this fed fast window.
And it's one of the best ways to activate stem cells.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got oodles of stem cells. Yeah. We don't need to go buy them in Mexico. We just have to activate them.
So true. So strength is a very new concept for me at BB Body, and mostly because my body is changing in my 50s, and I have chosen to incorporate strength training to maintain muscle that I have. I'm not worried about bulking, building too much muscle. We talked about the power of protein, but it's also strengthen the way we show up and strengthen our boundaries and strengthen our inner dialogue and strengthen so many ways. And it seems to be that strength is the new healthy and even a little bit sexy lately. Strength is the new sexy in my community of women. It's new for me. Love to know your thoughts on that. And lifting heavier, for me, it's progressive overload. It's slow, form first. Strength follows, in my opinion. But I'm seeing more and more of it, and it's probably because my community is 40, 50, 60, and seeing great results and feeling much better since I've added strength training into our workout split at BB Body.
We can see in our patients' blood work, most patients in America are insulin resistant. 80% of people who are overweight are insulin resistant. 98% of people who are obese are insulin resistant. Now, what does that mean? Insulin is basically a salesperson that takes the sugars we eat and the proteins we eat and tries to sell it to our muscles, who are their biggest customers. And if the muscles are hungry, or if there's a lot of muscles, then insulin has a really easy job. The muscles go, oh yeah, we're starving to death. We'll buy everything you've got. We'll take it. You don't even have to work. But if the muscles are, number one, not a lot of them, or if they're not doing any work, they're going, and insulin shows up, say, hey, Brooke just ate some great stuff here. Open the door. I want to sell it to you. And the muscles go, couldn't eat another bite. I'm stuffed. Or there's only 4 of us to buy what you're eating, and you've eaten for 12 people or 12 muscles. We can see that. We can measure it. So then we put them on a strength training program, and all of a sudden their insulin resistance drops, their insulin drops. And if I want to show patients a crystal ball of what bad things are going to happen to them, cancer, dementia, then insulin resistance and elevated insulin is the 2 perfect predictors of bad things happening. And so they can say, whoa, you mean all I had to do was do some, exercise snacking or add a little strength training? And strength training can be done at home.
100%. That's why I created my app. Absolutely. It doesn't take a lot to set up your digital space.
Yeah.
It takes a commitment, and you can start small, but I think that makes an incredible difference. And then the other side of strength training for me is the surrender, where yoga and the stretch philosophy comes into play. And I really think that yoga for me, it's not even a workout, it's medicine, it's my therapy, it's where I get all my inner housekeeping done. It's my time to really rest and reset and to listen to my body and the messages from my body. I think our bodies have so much to say. And if we learn to slow down, whether it's meditation, stillness, whatever it is that makes you feel good. But for me,
or get a dog.
Dog yoga, animal yoga at my house, my live streams. There's dogs, cats, children, everything. But I think yoga really helps. And it's time to really do that inner housekeeping and to drop into that inner voice inside and learn about your body. And sometimes we have to slow down to just listen. That's where I get most of my information. It's in that pace and in that stillness. So yoga's the other side of strength training for me, and I think it's all really important.
More amazing episodes just like this one. Watch now. Fruit is just another form of sugar that will spike your blood sugar. I guarantee it.